The Voice of ESG.
Hello everybody to the Voice of ESG, RSM's podcast where we talk about everything around ESG. Today we will be focusing on leadership and corporate culture. I'm Lene Timmerman from RSM Netherlands, a business consulting team specialized in sustainability. Today here with me are Suzanne de Boer and Dr. Verena Rauen, who also joined us for our previous episode on governance specifically. Suzanne, do you maybe want to introduce yourself again?
Yes, my name is Suzanne de Boer and I work as a director at RSM Netherlands. I focus on corporate governance and culture, and I have a background in ethics and compliance. But nowadays I work mainly with company culture and governance structures, as they are the underlying drivers of company conduct. And this is very important to address, as it's the driver of the current sustainability transition that companies are dealing with.
My name is Verena Rauen. I work at RSM Germany in the team Governance Risk Compliance, and I'm a senior manager for governance, compliance and ESG compliance. And I specialize on the implementation and audit of compliance management systems with a special focus on supply chain due diligence measures according to the new German Supply Chain Due Diligence Act.
Then I'd say you're the perfect person to get started by asking what leadership even is.
Leadership is a set of actions or behavior by members of the top management level and also medium management level, which should help to align the collective direction of the actions of each employee of the company. And this is actually to achieve the strategic goals of the company.
Mm-hmm. And why is it important for ESG?
Well, good question. There is a reporting directive called the CSRD and the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. And it has certain requirements regarding governance. We elaborated on those in the last podcast, but one of those requirements sees on corporate culture. And leadership is one of the strongest driver of corporate culture, and therefore we decided to have a separate podcast only on leadership.
So then let's get right into that, I'd say. Verena, do you maybe want to tell us a bit more about where you see the leadership and the tone from the top really impacting company culture?
Yeah, the tone from the top is very important for leadership because tone from the top represents the attitude of members of the management level towards the strategic goals and also the sustainability goals, and also towards compliance issues. And we know from experience that the tone from the top is very important for the corporate culture because the corporate culture is influenced by the role model of leaders who show actually what the right behavior is and what the productive attitude is towards sustainability goals. And this is why it is so important to combine the two. So with the tone from the top, managers just set the example of what integrity and good behavior is in a company. And this is a role model for all the others who work in the company. This is why it is so important. And if you have managers who are focusing solely on growth or excessive risk-taking, and if they have no mercy for any mistakes, so if there is not a good culture of dealing with mistakes, then employees might even quit. If managers set an example of integrity and responsibility, then they can serve as a role model for the overall practices and the overall corporate culture. While if they just focus on growth and excessive risk-taking, and if they implement a bad culture towards the dealing with mistakes, because they show no mercy with any mistakes and mistakes cannot not be articulated anymore, then this is quite the contrary, because it is not really productive for the corporate culture.
Yeah, leadership incredibly important for corporate culture then. But what is corporate culture actually? That may be the good next step.
Good question. Because it is not easy to define a company culture, and often it is characterized by the words, the way we do the things around here. But the question is, why do we do the things around here in the way we do it? And then this corporate culture comes into play, because it is like the invisible glue that binds people within a company together, which guides their behavior and shapes it. And it is what people feel and experience when they come to work. And it can be good or bad. And as we said in the last podcast, it's about the system, how it works, what is appreciated, what is rewarded, and what is not okay. And the funny thing is that it is often not really tangible, but you feel it and you see it and you know it when you are part of this culture for a while.
And then the next step from that. So I think great explanation of how you really feel it as an employee in a company, for example. What's the next step for the company itself? How does it impact the achievements of it?
The corporate culture has a decisive influence on how the goals of the company are achieved, because it encourages the commitment and innovation and loyalty among employees, and also their motivation to follow certain goals. And in turn, this increases productivity and also the ability to achieve strategic goals. So a culture that emphasizes openness and mutual respect and also recognition not only supports internal cooperation, but also strengthens the company's external image.
And because it is so important, this was also acknowledged by the regulator, and therefore under the G of governance they have included this company culture, because they know that it is such a strong influencer in the actual behavior of the company. So how is this done within the CSRD? They have set certain requirements regarding the top management. One being the knowledge and skills. It is very important that the board has the right skill set available to be able to deal with the challenges in the field of ESG. And additionally, it is also important that there is a clear information flow towards the management board and the supervisory board. When those two exist, it will raise a certain level of awareness on environmental, social and governance related issues, and hopefully it would ensure that those aspects are integrated into the company's strategic planning and decision making in order to promote sustainable development and to increase transparency towards stakeholders.
And what are the actual responsibilities that the management has in the CSRD process?
Yeah, the management has first and foremost the responsibility towards the implementation of the regulation and its demands. Here, for example, the compliance management systems comes into play, which is to provide the systemic structure for the compliance with the internal and external rules which a company has to follow. And due to the CSRD, these rules are very much oriented towards sustainability nowadays. And management must therefore take a leading role in the implementation of sustainable practices and also compliance with the law, because CSRD in the end is directing towards a regulation that enforces companies to report on their sustainability activities.
Yeah. But I think that most important of all is actually the shift that is requested by the regulator from shareholder value, which focuses on short-term profit making, irrespective of the consequences of this profit making, towards a stakeholder vision in which the stakeholder value is acknowledged, in which a company takes responsibility for the negative consequences or the negative impacts that are a result from the way they do business. And I think that this is one of the very biggest influencers of the tone from the top. Are you, as a company or are the top management, aware of the impact that you have, and do you want to change it for the better? Then the tone from the top will be different than when you don't care, when you want to keep focusing on profit making, and when you're not interested in the negative consequences this has. So if you're speaking about tone from the top, I think that this is one of the strongest expectations is from the regulator.
Keeping all of that in mind, what does good leadership actually look like?
In order to explain what good leadership looks like, maybe we should start with the contrary. Because there is this very traditional Machiavellistic approach to leadership, which is very power-centered and centered on strong hierarchies. And this approach is based merely, most of us will know that it stems from Niccolo Machiavelli, the Machiavellistic approach, and it is very much based on manipulation, power games, and it is at odds with the values of our modern society and the working world. So at a time when ethical behavior and sustainability are at the forefront due to all these measures of sustainability and the aim to achieve sustainable practices, these kind of management styles which focus so much on power and the preservance of power are not really productive anymore. So we should change to a leadership style which is based on cooperation and transparency, and also which circumvents the idea of extreme hierarchies. Of course, hierarchies are sometimes necessary. They can also make life easier. But it is important to reflect upon the necessity of hierarchy and upon the usefulness of flattening these hierarchies in order to create an atmosphere of inclusivity and
Inclusiveness.
In order to create an atmosphere of inclusiveness and cooperation, especially since we are living in a complex world which is marked by uncertainty, and where we need different perspectives on problems in order to understand them and to work on them productively. And this is why we need different voices. We also need criticism, and we need leaders who are able to hear warning voices before actually, for example, severe scandals can happen. And this is why this kind of old traditional model of hierarchy must be reflected upon. It's not like getting completely rid of it, but we should reflect upon where it is necessary and where not.
Is there also something that structurally, systematically, we should be keeping in mind for this?
Yes, of course. So incentives are very important here, for example. And this does not only concern the transparency of salaries and remuneration, but also creating slots where employees can actually address their normative concerns, where they can talk maybe about critical points. And this should also be implemented in strategic goals, for example. That you provide trainings for managers in order to be able to receive criticism and to utter criticism, and to deal with employees who articulate their criticism.
Suzanne, is there something you want to highlight about this question?
Well, I think that in addition to what Verena already said, effective leaders in today's society go beyond strategic decisions by cultivating a connection with society and understanding the needs of its stakeholders, not only the shareholders, but also the suppliers, the employees, the people that are affected by the activities of the company. And this willingness to cooperate with them and the focus on inclusivity, that is really important to be a strong leader that is efficient, and that can keep people together. So to motivate employees to see what is concerning them, and especially in those times that are a bit chaotic, it is a big time of transition. Things are changing. It's not the same as it used to be. That is difficult for people, but also for leaders. Mm-hmm. So to acknowledge this vulnerability and the insecurity that this time brings to companies, to human beings, is already a first big step in connecting with everybody and trying to find a way to go forward together.
And along those lines, what is actually requested of leaders in guiding this transition?
Yeah, I think that, as Suzanne said, the transition is characterized by a sense of uncertainty. And this uncertainty requires of leaders that they reflect up on their business culture. Because, and here's also again where the relationship is between the two. So tone from the top, leadership, and also business culture. Because the business culture is often something which is subconscious. So it is, people are not really aware that they are sticking to some unwritten rules. They just do it. Yeah, and it is very important for leaders to reflect upon this, because sometimes they have to change the culture in order to be able to cope with the transition or to go with the transition. And this is one important point. And here they have to be able to express doubts. They have to be able to express diverse thoughts and opinions, and also to start changes and change processes. And also they have to be able to not only to receive, but also to articulate criticism, as I already said. And they have to be able to cope with the uncertainty that criticism by employees brings. Because criticism is characterized by transporting information that you don't want to hear and that you don't expect. And this is a very, very important skill of a leader nowadays, that he's able to accept information even if he doesn't want it at first glance. And then also he or she has to be able to challenge new ideas and unconventional ideas and to dare to initiate a change. Last but not least, attentive listening, which requires the ability to overcome one's own ego, especially for a leader, is very important in guiding the transition.
And Suzanne, are there any lessons you'd like to give our listeners along the way, also about how they can start changing?
Well, yes, I have a lot of ideas, but I will keep it short to a few. First, walk the talk. I think that is one of the most important ones. If you if the tone from the top sets certain expectations, then make sure that as leaders you live up to those expectations yourself. Because otherwise it starts going wrong. It starts to go belly up from the beginning onwards. A second thing is that you have to be aware of your position at all times, because you might still feel that you are easily to approach, that you're still a human being, but people that are working for you lower in the hierarchy or that are working next to you might still find it difficult to provide criticism to you. So be aware and ask people actively to phrase their doubts, to say what they think, because it will help you in becoming a better leader. Additionally, it could be good to look for what they call the contrarian, somebody who is actively doubting your decisions, so that it will help you to check if you really overlooked everything. Then, and I think that is maybe the very most important part, is the leadership program. As you see in quite some organizations, is that the ones that are promoted is the ones that work the hardest, have the best results, and earn the biggest amount of money. But the question is that what you need to become sustainable on the long run? And I think, I think Verena agrees, that the ones that are able to build bridges, that make teams, that build teams where people feel safe and recognized, are much more sustainable in the long run than the teams in which there is a continuous fight to be the best and to stick out. So I think that leadership programs should start focusing on those cooperative skills that are more useful in the long run to build strong teams.
And with those ideas in mind, we're going to send our listeners on their way to reflect on them. So thank you both very much for being here. And for our listeners, thank you for listening. If you want to know more, you're very welcome to reach out to us. We will also keep releasing podcast episodes around all types of topics around ESG, also around governance. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you.